Alrighty, folks, and we're back at it for our latest New York Metropolitan Big Mets update segment. I'm currently recording this the night before our live post-game show to my 1,500 concurrent amazing Mets fans, viewers watching live on YouTube, around 500, the other 1,000 on X. Thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate that. But all my replay viewers chiming in now, listen up. We got a lot to break down. This series victory against the Red Sox was amazing, headlined by David Pearson's heroics with 11 strikeouts on his 29th birthday. Most strikeouts from a Mets starter pitching on their birthday in team history. Very cool little stat there. And Mr. MVP himself and Francisco Lindor doing everything humanly possible to lead this team into playoff play at bare minimum this year. But we're going to break down not only Francisco Lindor, but how David Stearns currently feels about the potential MVP candidate. Why is he so deserving? From there, we're going to get into Paul Blackburn, Sean Refoley, Justin Verlander, and a little bit on the farm as well. So let's break down exactly that. But before I do, folks, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor on the channel that you all know very well, America's #1 sportsbook at BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Alrighty, folks, let's get into this one. But before we do, make sure to hit that link in the description down below for all my YouTube viewers. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. We sadly won 1-for-1 on this past night's parlay. We hammered the Phillies there over the Toronto Blue Jays, and they were up 10-8 there in the 9th. And if they implode, then they implode. It is what it is. And we saw, sadly, my other leg not hit because I preferred the Royals over the Guardians. That was a pretty lopsided victory there for Cleveland. So we are currently 2, and we are right now, I believe we are 4-2 on our bets over this past week overall, and we hit on our Mets and Yankees both money line straight a couple days ago, so we'll see how we do with those future bets as we do in our post-game shows per usual. So thank you guys for tailing in. Good luck, bet responsibly. But let's break down now the key with David Stearns here, because we all saw David Stearns have a presser today, right? And like you, I was a little caught off guard. The David Stearns pressers have been happening more as of late, with the Mets having just a little over 20 games left this season. I feel like we're going to recurrently have David Pearson talking to the media on a weekly basis, rightfully so. And pardon me, not David Pearson, David Stearns rather, my mistake, everybody. I'm talking about David Pearson because he was so good for the Mets, that we broke down at great length, a complete deep dive in our post-game segment. So check that out in case you haven't already that are watching this on replay. But what we saw from David Stearns was a lot, and it had everything to do with Francisco Lindor. First, he raved about Mets starting pitchers that we know about, and it's been great to see the success they've had. And as I alluded to in my post-game segment a little bit earlier here, also talking about how it's great to see the Mets pitchers in Sean Manaea, David Pearson, even to an extent, Jose Quintana, when he has been right, Luis Severino, among others, continue to find new ways to get quality outs and get deeper into ball games down the stretch of the season, playing meaningful September baseball, incentivized baseball for these starters in this rotation, a rotation that was the biggest question mark among any contending team really heading into the season, and now the Mets are having themselves the best rotation in all the National League, going back a couple months, going all the way back to basically the middle of June. No rotation in all the National League has had a better team ERA than the New York Mets. That is how good that they have been, and last time I checked the stat, it was right around 3.7. But let's now talk about what's going on with Francisco Lindor, because this is what stood out so much to me. We've earned the right to be here. We played well enough to be here. This isn't a fluke. David Stearns, when talking about the Mets making playoffs, he has confidence in his Mets team, rightfully so. How can you not have at least a level of confidence in the Mets with the run that they've been having themselves having as of late? 7-3 road trip there, a grueling road trip, 9-4 if you add on the Baltimore Orioles series prior, and now you add another 2 victories against the Boston Red Sox, looking for a serious sweep. You're in very good territory if you're the Mets here. And when looking at Lindor and when looking at his MVP opportunity, this is what David Stearns had to say, everybody. So listen up to the following. David Stearns, when asked what an MVP looks like, and I think he looks like the guy who runs out at shortstop every day for us at 7 p.m. But this quote is the most interesting one. We're getting to the point where we're talking about perhaps the greatest individual position player season in the Mets in the history of this franchise. Yes, you heard that correctly, everybody. That is absolutely bananas, but the crazier thing out of this, my biggest takeaway, is that it isn't all bananas. It isn't as crazy as you think. Lindor already has a 7-WAR season right now. Yes, does he need to pretty much get up to 8? Well, I'm pretty sure the leading candidate, was it David Wright's best season? Was he an 8-WAR player? I want to say he was, or in that category. That's the one to best, basically. But when you factor in the elite defense, and as much as I love David, David has never been a defender nearly at the level of Francisco Lindor consistently. He has never been proficient in the 90th plus percentile in his respective position when he was at the hot corner, the way that Lindor is in the 99th percentile, and now it's above average yet again in the shortstop position, leading the way with Dansby Swanson there for the Chicago Cubs. Lindor's all-around play has now led him to the point that we're going to look back on this 2024 season, and we're just not going to talk about the Mets and Francisco Lindor's great year, but we're going to talk about how that was one of, if not the best season that Francisco Lindor had as a Met, at least to this point. Absolutely massive for a guy that handled the expectations, listened to all the noise, a $341 million man who couldn't even bat from the left side of the plate for a month and a half this season, then gets thrown the leadoff spot and locks back in like he did during his time in Cleveland, has been tearing the cover off the ball, the most valuable player in Major League Baseball since then. The Mets have had the most victories between themselves, the Braves, and the Phillies in the National League East since going all the way back to May 13th. And what happens? Not even a week later from May 13th, Francisco Lindor starts to bat leadoff this season. Coincidence? I think not. Lindor, who has batted over 300 with a north of 400 OBP and over 500 slug for 930 or so OPS and a 135 WRC plus, batting leadoff this season, is showcasing exactly why he is a true MVP candidate. And unlike Shohei Ohtani, that we're going to say all the time, even if Shohei wins it with a potential 50-50 season, it's great to see Shohei exemplifying that defense of absolutely nobody, because Lindor is flashing the leather in the most premium position to do so, and is doing it at the highest rate imaginable, at the highest level that you could ask for in Major League Baseball. Just bananas what we have seen from Francisco Lindor this season, and that is why the comment from David Stearns itself isn't as bananas as you might think. It's crazy, I know, but yes, Francisco Lindor is now entering territory where he's going to have one of the best seasons in Major League history for the Mets, at least. I shouldn't say Major League history, just Mets history, at least. Fantastic stuff. So that's the latest there on David Stearns and some of the key takeaways from his comments that we saw there. Talking about Francisco Lindor, how he brings the entire package, because let's also not forget, as we look at Francisco Lindor, this is a guy that's on pace for another 30 season. I mean, he's going to have 30-plus stolen bags again for his second straight year, and he just entered a category that is, along with Alex Rodriguez, as the only guys who have played full-time shortstop in Major League history that have at least 5 seasons of 30 home runs or more. If you add in the fact that they're not playing just shortstop, at least 50% of their games as shortstop, then he enters Ernie Banks and A-Rod in that category. Still elite company, no less, and that is how good Francisco Lindor continues to be for the Mets this season. So to go from Francisco Lindor, let's talk a bit now on Paul Blackburn, because as we all know, Paul Blackburn, who took a 100-mile-per-hour heater that we saw, sadly, unfortunately, to the hand. We saw Mr. Paul Blackburn get one from David Peralta against the San Diego Padres, and he would go down on the 15-day IL because of this reason. And as my guy Michael Mayer, who I'm sure tweeted this earlier, I'm going to go and find this for you guys to show you exactly what we got from Paul Blackburn in his outing. I'm pretty sure I even posted that myself, or maybe I didn't. Maybe the Syracuse Mets did themselves. I'm actually going to check that real quick, because the Syracuse Mets had the line for you. I know the line off the top of my dome already. 6 innings, very good stuff there, but I want to show you guys briefly here Paul Blackburn in his first outing of rehab. Mind you, Tyler McGill is on the bump for the series finale, a night game series finale for a change, which is awesome. Love that there for the Mets against the Red Sox. But McGill potentially making his second and final start for the Mets before Blackburn returns from the IL stint. He looked great in his first start back that we saw there, where again, we're looking at 6.2 innings of 4 hit, 1 earned run ball, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts for Paul Blackburn on the day. And where is the Paul Blackburn highlights? I'm sure. Oh, now I know where they are. They're SNY Mets. That's where they are. Because I was saying myself, I know that they weren't on the Syracuse Mets page today, but they were on the other page that the Mets SNY has, because they have a SNY one, then they have a Mets SNY one. And I know that earlier today, they posted this. Here we go. Yep, final line for Paul Blackburn. And you guys can see there, worked his pitches beautifully. And we know Blackburn, when he was first acquired by the Mets, went really cutter heavy. Interested to see if he will approach that yet again with the Mets, going all cutter, 20 to 30% there in his arsenal, versus being in the 10 to 15% that he had prior to arriving with the Mets this season. That cutter usage worked brilliantly for him in the beginning, but then we saw after the fact when he was getting barreled hard from his former team, now foe in the Oakland A's, and then we saw him get rocked in another start start after that. Paul Blackburn, we know what we're getting from him. He's a soft tossing right-hander that's similar to Jose Quintana, needs pinpoint accuracy to help him induce those ground ball outs that he does so well. And Blackburn is your number 5 starter. That's what you're going to get from him, but certainly a serviceable arm that the Mets can utilize. You can never have enough arms in this rotation for the Mets, and we are going to get Blackburn back sooner rather than later. And I certainly look forward to that because, again, as I've been saying all along, we need arms, folks. You can never have enough. Speaking of arms, Sean Reed-Foley, some unfortunate news that I'd like to share with you all on Sean, which is not nearly as positive as Paul Blackburn that I just reiterated to you all today, and it is the following, everybody. Sean Reed-Foley, who has been continuing to try to work up there in rehab, has sadly continued to setbacks. SRF, who has a right shoulder impingement after he was ramping up this past month, looking good, and then the mechanics weren't looking right. He wasn't looking comfortable. What happened there for Mr. Sean Reed-Foley? Anthony DiComo reported on it earlier today. And we saw Sean state the following when talking about, if he's going to pitch again this season. And he said, sure. I don't know, man. I don't really know what to tell you. And this is, mind you, after Sean Reed-Foley has been throwing off flat ground, but doesn't sound like he's close to a mound. And with pretty much a month left this season, Sean Reed-Foley, who was nails for the Mets in over 20 innings, SRF, when healthy this year, was fantastic. I cannot say enough great things on his ability to command the strike zone better than what we have seen in years past. Yes, the walk rate is still high, between a 4 and a 5 walks per 9, but his strikeouts were brilliant. Sean was looking strong out there, eating multiple innings at a quality rate, and him and Danil Nunez alike are both guys that the Mets need back and fast. And speaking of Danil Nunez, at least the Mets have somewhat of a positive update on that front. Danil, who returned after being out for a month plus, pitched for like 1 day, and then he went right back on the IL, sadly. He has forearm tightness that we know. He is not throwing at all this week, but he should be able to ramp up quickly once he does, per Carlos Mendoza. So similar to Starling Marte with his injury, where yes, for Marte, he dragged a bit with the bone bruise, but once he was fully healthy, it would be a quick ramp up because that he's healthy and he's good to go. That's the case here with Danil Nunez, thankfully. So we're just waiting for that forearm tightness to stop. He's not throwing at all this week. Once that dissipates, once that goes away, we're going to ramp him up quickly again and get him back in this Mets bullpen, hopefully as soon as he is eligible off the injured list. And I believe that this is retroactive going back to August 26th. So bear that in mind. Hopefully Danil, sooner rather than later, will return to this Mets pen. And last but not least, folks, let's have some positive news to end this one, and that has everything to do with Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. As many of you know, the Mets ate the contracts of Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander to acquire Luis Angel Acuna, Drew Gilbert, and Ryan Clifford, just to name a few there on those deals this past offseason. And as we fast forward to 2024, Justin Verlander, if he pitched, say, 150 innings or so this year, then he would have a vesting option to opt in for that final year of his deal with the Mets. Thankfully, the Mets are off the hook now. His JV has struggled mightily, that we have seen since coming off the IL. He's only at 71 innings this season, so he is not going to reach that $17 million option for the 2025 season. So the Mets are off the hook there. That's roughly $20 million that they don't have to worry about, that David Stearns and Steve Cohen can now spend. And Max Scherzer is back on the injured list, sadly for him and the Texas Rangers, who are going nowhere this year at this rate. 39 innings pitched for Mad Max this year. Another guy that's inching closer and closer to retirement. Not that I wish it for Max, because I don't have ill will. We've been through a lot with Max Scherzer, but I will appreciate him for what he was and his highs with the Mets in 2022. And I will also not appreciate him for his lows and faltering the way he did in that wildcard game, where sadly I and many of you were sadly in attendance for that matchup. But at the core of it, what does this mean? The Mets and their moves, thanks to Billy Epler, were brilliant, and Steve Cohen eating money proved exactly how it can work in the Mets' favor, and right now is working as good as one could hope for from the prospect return that they received in Drew Gilbert, who's been tearing the cover off the ball. Ryan Clifford, same applies, and to a degree there, what we have seen from the Mets and Luis Angel Acuna, especially over the past month, he's played great baseball at the AAA level. No less, the Mets have gotten contributions big time from those guys, and they're off the hook on all those dollars. Money well spent by the Mets, so they can look back and say, hey, it wasn't all that bad. It wasn't as bad as what they initially thought heading into it, if you will. So that is all the latest updates in Metsland, everybody. If you want to know any other details on the Mets series victory against the Red Sox, I highly implore you all to check out our post-game coverage, which was around 40 plus minutes after it was cut off after it was live from my live viewers. And we still got 1,500 watching as we speak right now at 10:54 p.m. Eastern. The night before, you are probably watching this as it's posted as a separate video on YouTube. So let us know your biggest takeaway down below in the comments from all the latest updates in Metsland. And when looking at Mets prospects right now, I just have to ask, which one would you like to see the Mets call up and why? If the Mets are going to make any changes to the offense or to the pitching from now till the end of the season, they will. Which guys stand out the most to you? Because we've talked about all of them at great length. So I'm really curious where you guys stand in the comments down below. To my live viewers, we're going to continue on with the live show. Everyone that watched this as an individual video, thank you all so much. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Make sure to check out BetUS for all your sports betting needs once more by clicking that link down in the description. That way you too get 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. Let's go Mets, baby. Now for my live viewers, let's get to some of your callers that we're doing our live call-in show. And to my replay viewers, this is where we'll be cutting things off. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.